everyone, and welcome to my new series. It's called Minecraft Storytime. I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and let's start reading. But yes, this is my house. I built it on my own. But yes, let's grab the mystery book. Let's place it down on my reader. Let's get in this chair, and let's start reading. The book I'm reading today is called Heart of a Dolphin, and it's by Hapka. Okay, let's start reading chapter 1. It was my little brother Will's birthday, which meant the official start of summer. Oh, school had been out for 2 or 3 weeks already, and sunscreen-smeared tourists had been snarling traffic in our coastal Connecticut town. Even longer than that, but Will's birthday. The water had warmed up enough that my toes didn't turn numb when I swam. The blackfish season was open again. We were celebrating with a party and cookout with the half-sand, half-stone beach of the Little Twin, smaller than Twin Coves, Points Coves. Mom was taking the whole day off for a change, and Jacob, torn himself away from his college prep stuff, and 2 kids from Will's class had actually showed up. Emma was there too, of course. She always came to our family parties. She was pretty much an honorary Reed after being my best friend for as many of our 11 and a half years as either of us could remember. "Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy?" Will chanted, sounding closer to 3 years old than just turning 8. His blue eyes were wide and a little crazy looking, probably because his birthday was the one day he was allowed to eat all the junk food he wanted. Mom glanced up from her book, sweeping a strand of auburn hair off her forehead where the breeze had blown it. Her hair used to be the exact same color as mine and Will's, bright strawberry blonde. But one day a few months ago, I noticed hers was starting to look different. When I'd grabbed a handful to take a closer look, I could see strands of silvery gray all through it. A few days after that, Mom came home with a bag from the drugstore, and the next morning, her hair was darker all over. "Daddy will be here in a little while, honey," Mom told Will now. Her eyes were tired, and I could tell she was trying to sound patient. But it was hard to be patient when Will asked the same question millions of times. I knew that better than anyone. "Come here, Will," Jacob called over the near tidal pool at the rocky end of the crescent-shaped beach. "I'm showing you guys how to skip stones. Don't you want to try?" The other kids barely glanced at the birthday boy. They were arguing over a flat stone. Finally, one of them, a pale kid with a turned-up nose, grabbed the stone and tossed it toward the water, where it landed with a plop and disappeared. "Rats!" The kid sounded frustrated. "I can't get it." The other kid grinned. "Maybe you need to chop off a couple fingers and you'll be better." His eyes wandered to my older brother's left hand, which was missing a pinky and a ring finger, almost all the way to the lower knuckles. Jacob had lost those fingers in a boating accident when he was 5, which was the year before I was born. He hardly seemed to miss them, and I'd never known him any other way, so I didn't notice it much either, until someone started staring. "Check it out, Annie." Emma poked me in the back. I rolled over toward her, wiggling my hip to avoid a sharp stone that was poking me through my towel. "What?" She pointed at a fashion magazine she'd been flipping through. "Do you think I could pull off this outfit?" I wrinkled my nose. "Why would you want to? It looks like she's wearing a giant paper towel." "Stop." Emma giggled and pointed to the opposite page. "Okay, what about this one?" I sat up, tired of lying around. "Let's go body surfing or something." "Oh, or we could snorkel. I really found a cool moon snail out there last week." "Nah." Emma licked her fingers and turned the page. "I want to work on my tan." I stared at her, wondering if she was joking, because she never used to care about stuff like tanning, fashion magazines. This was different, Emma, one I did not understand. She even looked different. I noticed that the first time I saw her in a swimsuit that summer. Over the winter, beneath all those layers of clothes, she'd changed. Parts of her had slimmed down, other parts had filled out. She was at least 2 inches taller than me now. Not that that was saying much, anyway. I didn't like it. Things were supposed to change when I wasn't paying attention, especially not best friends. Trying not to think about that, I grabbed the magazine out of her hands. Quit reading and talk to me, or I'll throw this into the water, I warned playfully. She squealed, trying to grab it back. You better not. I spent the last of my allowance on that. I didn't answer. Emma's family was rich, really rich. Her mom was a famous painter, and her dad had been born into one of the richest families in New York City, and then became a zillionaire all over again on his own. Their house was called the Cottage, but it was actually the largest of the 4 houses in Twin Coves Point. Of the remaining 3 houses, 2 of them were almost as big and fancy as the cottage, only newer. The last house was where my family lived. It used to be a caretaker's cottage for one of the biggest houses until my mom's grandfather bought it a long time ago. We'd been there forever, which was the only reason we could afford to live anywhere near the point, let alone on it. Anyway, Emma could afford all the fashion magazines in Connecticut if she really wanted them, but her parents said they didn't want to spoil her. So they made her stick to an allowance at least most of the time. Emma leaned back on her elbows, her long, wavy brown hair brushing against her towel. It was almost as long as mine now, and I was surprised she hadn't made me measure it lately. We used to do that all the time back when we were both first started growing it out. When's your dad getting here anyway? I'm starving, Emma said. He promised to come as soon as the lunch rush was over. I could only hope he actually made it, or Will was going to freak out. My dad was a chef. Up until the previous fall, he'd worked at the famous restaurant right by the harbor called Dockview, which had been in business for over 100 years. Then his uncle died and left him some money, so Dad decided to open his own restaurant, Mike's Seafood. Apparently, it was his lifelong dream, even though he'd never said a peep to me about it. Ugh. Ever since he worked all the time, every summer before this one, Dad and Jacob had gone fishing at least 2 or 3 times a week, from the start of blue crab season until it got too cold for the fall this year. We'd only been out at the boat a total of 3 times so far, and even those times weren't the same. Since Dad traded in a nice old fishing boat for the smaller, much less fancy one, he sold her sailboat too, raising capital. He called it, which sounded like something Emma's father would say. So when do you think new people will move in? Emma asked. I was so used to her sudden changes of subject. Her attention span was almost as short as Will's, though most people didn't seem to mind it as much coming from her. You mean Brooke's house? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Brooke was a year older than us. Her family had lived on a point until they moved to Los Angeles to the end of school year. Yes, Emma's gaze was wandering up the steep wall of the cove, though all we could see from the beach was the schooner-shaped copper weather vane of the very top of her own house. Morgan heard the new family has a kid our age. Really? I wanted to ask why she had been talking to Morgan again, but I bit my tongue. Well, this kind of crazy, there always ends up being a girl around our age living in each house at the point, I said instead. I know, right? Emma squinted up at me. But we don't know if it's a girl or a boy this time, she giggled. Morgan hopes it's a boy. Yeah, she would, I muttered. Morgan Pierce had lived in her house between Emma's and Brooke's for years. Up until that summer, she thought she was too good to hang out with Emma and me. Maybe because it was her mom was on TV or her dad retired Navy admiral from an old New England family that owned half the Connecticut. Or maybe she was just natural-born snob. Either way, Brooke moving away had left Morgan without a best friend, or anyone to the point to hang out with at all. She was still totally ignoring me, but she'd started being a little friendlier to Emma. That was weird enough, but even weirder thing, Emma didn't seem to mind all that much. Over the tidal pool, Will's friends were getting tired of skipping stones. Let's go swimming, one of them said. Yeah! Will charged toward the water. Will, wait! My mom's voice rang out, echoing off the high, rocky walls of the cove. Aren't you forgetting something? Huh? Oh. Will glanced at the bright red life jacket Mom's hand. His face fell. He slunk over and slipped it on. One of the boys laughed. What are you doing? Just in case, Will told them. That was what my parents always said, just in case. Will couldn't swim, not very well anyway. Whenever his head went underwater, even the pool, calm water of our little cove, he panicked and started flailing around and eventually sank. Which was weird since its whole rest of the family was practically part fish. I learned to swim before I could really even walk. We had home movies that proved it, and I made varsity swim team at the middle school right away. Even though most of people stayed on JV for at least a year. Come on, let's go in too. I poked Emma on the shoulder. Ow! She swatted my finger away. You go. It's still too cold for me. Fine. Her eyes were now closed. She didn't even see my frown. I told the old Emma loved to swim. I quickly wrapped up my waist-length braid into a messy bun and secured it with an elastic. Then I headed toward the water. The younger boys were already splashing around the shallows, throwing sand, trying to scare one another by pretending to see a jellyfish and a shark every 5 seconds. It was still day and the waves weren't even big enough for body surfing. So I waited to the drop off 30 feet out, where the water suddenly gets deep. I forgot my snorkeling mask. I didn't feel like I was going to get back to get it. So I dove down and skimmed along with my eyes closed, enjoying the feel of cold water on my skin. When I came up for air, I heard splashing behind me and opened my eyes quickly, wondering if Emma had changed her mind about swimming. It wasn't Emma, though. It was Jacob, was bobbing in the water, grinning at me. His hair, dark and curly like Dad's, was plastered to his forehead. Want a race? He asked, to the spit and to back. You're on. I let myself sink under and did a strong whip kick, gliding forward before he even had a chance to get moving. Then I surfaced and went straight to a front crawl, my arms windmilling steadily as if I was in the finals at a swim meet. Suddenly, I felt a hand grab my ankle. A sharp yank pulled me under, and I came up sputtering. Cheater! I yelled as my brother swam past me with a laugh. I was about to lunge forward and dunk him, but he paused and shaded his face to stare at something. What's that? He said. I followed his gaze and saw some movement on a rocky spit at the edge of the cove. For a second, I panicked, thinking Will must have walked out there again. A lot of trash washed up on the spit, carried out from the harbor at tides trapped by jagged rocks. One day last summer, Will had spotted a cool-looking bottle or something through Dad's binoculars and decided he wanted to retrieve it. So he waited until Jacob wasn't looking and sneaked off. Picking his way along the precarious walls of stone, barnacles, and algae, it was a miracle he hadn't slipped and fallen and been swept all out Long Island Sound. He ended up with a big gash on his foot from a piece of broken glass. And Jacob had been in big trouble for not paying enough attention when he was supposed to be watching him. But a quick glance over my shoulder told me Will was still splashing around safely in the shallows. I swam past Jacob, squinting against the sunlight glinting off the water, blinking moisture out of my eyes. I saw a silvery shape huddled against the rocks. I think it's a dolphin, I exclaimed. A bottlenose! I stared in wonder. The sleek gray creature was pressed up against the rocks, half submerged in the frothy little waves breaking against the spit. He looked just like the other dolphins I've seen many times in the aquarium over the Mystic, or from the boat where we occasionally spotted them swimming along in the distance, especially out toward the eastern end of the Sound. Except this one was right here, less than 10 feet in front of me. Careful, Jacob was still treading water behind me. It may look cute, but it's a wild animal. Don't get too close. I won't. I kicked forward a little more. Why isn't he swimming away? Annie, stop! Jacob sounded worried. I ignored him, my face gazed upon the dolphin. He wiggled his tail and slapped against the rock, but he stayed where he was. Easy, buddy, I said soothingly. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. I just want to see my voice trailed off so the dolphin thrashed again, giving me a better look at the rest of his body. Oh, gosh! I glanced back at Jacob. He's all tangled up in a fishing line! My heart pounded as I swam even closer, trying to get a better look. A tangle of what looked like a heavy-duty braid line was wrapped around a dolphin's midsection, part of his tail, pretty much lashing him to the rocks behind him. The dolphin stopped, struggling for a moment, staring at me with dark eyes that were wise, gentle, and curious. There were large, half-healed wounds zigzagging across his face. starting in front of one eye and ending just short from the blowhole atop his head. Easy, easy, I murmured, using the egg beater to kick to steady myself. The current carried me toward the dolphin. I'm your friend, okay? Dolphin let out a funny little chirping sound, but he stayed as still as I tentatively reached out toward him. I was vaguely aware of Jacob calling out to me again, but I barely heard him. I couldn't take my eyes off the dolphin. I'd never seen one so up close like this. Now without a thick pane of glass between us anyway. The dolphin seemed bigger than I would have expected, maybe a little wilder too. Somehow though, I didn't really feel afraid, just weirdly shy. Holding my breath, I leaned forward and touched the dolphin's side. His skin felt rubbery and smooth. I took it gently and the dolphin chirped again, his gaze never leaving my face. I couldn't believe he was letting me pet him. It made me feel honored and sort of breathless, like the first time Emma's mom asked my opinion on one of her paintings. As I ran my hand up toward this dorsal fin, an extra-large wave washed past me, splashing up and making the dolphin thrash once more. I winced as the line dug deeper into his smooth gray skin. I turned to see Jacob was still bobbing in the water 20 yards back. He's really stuck, I called. The tide's coming in. Soon he won't be able to keep his blowhole above surface. He'll die if we don't help him. Well, everybody, that was chapter 1. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. This is just chapter 1. Next Sunday, I'm going to be doing chapter 2. Hope you guys are excited about that. Also, then again, I did build this house on my own. I hope you guys like it. So I'm just going to sit here and stare at this book to see what the next chapter is going to be about. Ooh, we have a good next chapter next episode. I'm sure you guys are going to really like it. Here's something about this book, guys. I actually haven't read it before. This is just how it's going to be. But thank you guys for... Oh, I actually got it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this episode. Wait, how do I get out of the chair again? Okay, there. Let's just put it back. But thank you guys for watching this episode. And may all beings be happy. Also, please don't get sick during this winter season. Love you guys.